Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is JGOD. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Gulag and how to win more 1v1s once you get sent there, so your team doesn't have to pay that $4,500 to bring you back. Or if you're playing solos, you get that second chance opportunity to try and get that win. So even if you find one tip helpful, please do me a favor hitting that like button. I do have a goal in today's video of 1,000 likes. If you're brand new looking to find your way back for whatever reason, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Let's go ahead and get into it. So what I wanted to show you is the Gulag that is available in multiplayer within the private match. Obviously, it doesn't look identical to the Gulag you see when you go into the 1v1. They kind of have it much larger because this was designed for 2v2 and 3v3. Obviously in a 1v1 you're going to deal with a lot smaller scenario, but I thought I'd still show off a couple important things to be aware of when you're playing this particular mode. One of the things you can do to help yourself get a little bit more visibility when you're seeing a target is to just mark them. This has been kind of on Reddit for a little bit. They kind of showed it off. I've seen some people do that in the Gulag. A lot of times people think people are just messing around, but in reality this can actually be practical. So when you see the enemy even at a distance, they're pretty visible. Obviously, you can choose the colors that make the most sense for you. Some people like red, some people like yellow. But it really just depends on your preference and what colors you have available to you. But in the game, you can pretty much mark the people's bodies, and then they will be very visible when you see them running around the map. So this is an easy way to go if you're trying to add a little bit more visibility to Gulag, which could be very dark. Obviously, the sight lines are still very similar. We're only going to have a little bit cut up. And a lot of times there's going to be different techniques that you're going to utilize to take advantage of the situation, because all the enemy players are always going to play differently. So you're just going to be able to have to adjust. So a couple things to keep in mind is that you're going to have an opportunity to play different ways. Obviously, if you just load into the Gulag, you can just go for it, try and rush aggressively, do your slide cancel, attack sprint all the way around the corner, and hopefully they're still in the spawn. And you're going to deal with another type of player, which is the player that just camps. And sometimes that's what people do. They'll just camp back here. They're going to wait, and they're going to just kind of like wait for audio. They're going to see you sprinting around the corner, and they're going to try and go ahead and get after you. One of the benefits you have as a rusher, though, is you get peeker's advantage if you guess right. If you guys are both rushers, a lot of times what will end up happening is you end up in the enemy spawn, and you go back from there. But we'll get into a little bit of those things. One thing I did want to talk about that I haven't really seen much people talk about, and when I brought it up on Twitter, it got a lot of engagement, and that is the overall field of view and how it differs from console to PC. Right now, you can see that at the top of my screen, it says the FPS is 120 because I am playing on a PC. And the misconception, especially if you Google it, it's going to say that the field of view for console is 67, which just doesn't look right. The actual field of view, I went back to test it with the side-by-side comparisons of my PS4 and the PC, and I came up with 80 is the overall field of view. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Just as a comparison's sake, 60, if I put this lower, people even think it's 60. It just feels like really weird. Like, it just feels odd. You can feel it feels sluggish. And a lot of times, field of view impacts how you feel about your movement. It is actually hurting my eyes. Actually, there's no way it's on 60. Even if it just feels wrong. So we normally going to play on 80 when it's a console. A lot of PC players are a much higher field of view. So what I did want to show you is the comparison. Just as a comparison is if they're peeking this sight line and this sight line, this is what you have access to. If I go ahead and change that field of view, this is why crossplay gets kind of crazy, because some people do play on max. I think most PC players play on 105 to 110, but there are a lot that do play on max as well. So just to the comparison, look at how far I can see over here. Literally, I can see all three vantage points. So if they're on the left, I just peek over. If they're in the middle, they're in the middle, or on the right side. And then let's go ahead and look at it again. So I can see all three, and we're going to go back. So this is sometimes where they can see around corners that you can't see. This is the same field of view. Look, I literally can't even see that side. So maybe you got to be aware of that on how your positioning is so you can actually get the angle that you want. You can still get it. You just got to step back a little bit further and you can kind of peek. And that's what you always want to be doing, is always be moving and be aware of your surroundings so that you can actually get the cover. Because right here, this wall could cut me off, and then potentially I can see the enemy player. maybe I can't. It really just depends. A lot of times those layouts change and you got to be aware of how they work. So there's that part of it. The other part is just line of sight. What happens is as you get closer to the object, my whole, like I'm all cut off, but the enemy is going to see my shoulder. They can literally see your shoulder from this point of view. So a lot of times if you back off the sight line, you and the enemy player are going to see the exact same thing. So a lot of times you don't want to get point blank up to stuff unless, obviously, if I come up to mid and I'm trying to sit here and I'm waiting for them to jump out, I'm going to pay attention. As soon as they come through, then I can shoot them. But normally you're not going to want to be this close to the wall because you limit your line of sight versus here, I can peek it out. And so there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, let me just run out and get into a gunfight. So obviously we talked about a couple different play styles. You can rush, just go full for it, and maybe you try and pre-aim it, get a little bit lucky, and you get somebody catching, you catch them in the spawn, which is ideally what you want. You want to hurry up so quick. They're probably waiting for their tactical. You come out, and you take them out. And there are the people, like I said, they're going to play passive. Normally, if you're playing passive, odds are you are not going to do well. So what happens before is sometimes you can get lucky in camp and you would just position. That was why having these automatic weapons increased the skill gap, because there's a little bit less randomness. When I used to come around, I can come around the corner looking for them. I jump out and I get one shot just because they're like this. 9 times out of 10, they end up getting killed because if they're pre-aiming that side and I work my way around the left, I just shoot them in the back. Even if I'm at this distance, I would close distance, take them out. So there's a little bit of that going on. But typically the person who plays passive is the one who loses. So you kind of want to have a balance between just smart play and aggression. Because most people that when they're going to play, they're very passive. They don't know any better. They just kind of camp. Even if you go against a sweat, usually they're going to play more aggressive. So if you do want to play strategically and sit back, because maybe that's your strategy. One thing that was all over Reddit, and I actually seen it in a match before, is people actually marking when those outlines of players came out. People ended up using that. Since I'm in a private match, it doesn't let me use custom ones, but pretty much they would use these on the wall, and then when you would kind of just wait it out, and when the player would come around, you'd be, and then oh, there's not a real person, and then they'd get shot. So that was kind of a funny tactic. Obviously, it works on maybe usually low skill players. Sometimes it'll cause a player that's rushing around. Oh. Give them a half-second delay, and it gives you a chance to listen in. All right, so now that's that part of the Gulag. Next up is how should you play the Gulag, right? So there's a couple different routes you can go. It really depends on the layout and what it's going to provide. A lot of times if it's open in the middle, you're going to have multiple vantage points. This one doesn't really do a good job of it. Like this is a better angle where I can see here, here, and here. And pretty much what I'm doing is kind of moving. Not too close to this because you can see it cuts off my lines of sight to the left and then to the right. So pretty much you're just kind of keeping your head on a swivel and waiting for your tactical to come in handy. If you see someone, obviously, you're going to take them out. If you don't, then you kind of got to just do a 50-50 guess. First off, you're going to throw your stun. If you get a hit marker, go for it. And ideally, you want to come through, jump shot where you feel like they got hit. A lot of times you can get a good indication if you understand where the bounce is going. So if you come through, a lot of times you know where that went off. You're going to come through, hurry up, try and close that distance because someone's in the stun state, they're basically screwed. So you come through and then you can melee them, you can shoot them, you can do whatever, hip fire, you can teabag, whatever the hell you want, you can do that. And let's say that doesn't work. So you throw a stun, it's not there. That means they're probably on this right side. So then you're going to hold your nade and cook it and you throw it. And you time it so it goes through. And then if it gets another hit marker, then you push them. You know they're low health. It's going to take one shot to kill them, whereas they have to hit you with 3 or 4 unless they're landing a headshot, at least with the majority of the weapons. And that's pretty much it. You just play it by ear. And then if that gives you a hit marker, you're going to usually get some audio cue saying they're rotating to the left or something like that. And then you just push according to the audio cue. Worst case scenario, you play the flag. Usually the flag is centered around here and it's covered. So let's say if it was right here, what I can do is get up against here and I'm just listening. Do I hear them? Do I hear them? They have to come this way or the other. And if I hear them behind me, then I just turn around and I fire. If they're on this side, I just hold it steady, and fire. As they come around, they're going to have to run. What happens a lot of times though, that you got to be aware of, is if you're not being aggressive, there's not a lot of reason to sprint, because what ends up happening is when you sprint, your sprint out time and your ADS time are going to be slower. So it's slower than if I'm already here. You could already kind of just snap onto the target. So those are some basic tips. We're going to focus a little bit more on the sightline stuff and how to make yourself visible to the enemy player. And make sure that you're avoiding being visible to the enemy player. So we'll go ahead and check that out. So when does my head disappear?
Now.
So this is how far I had to side strafe for my head to disappear. And this is actually kind of ridiculous when you're thinking about like visibility, that literally they can see me right here. So let me go ahead and change the field of view like I was talking about and how that's going to affect your sight lines here. So let me go ahead and put the max field of view and let me see how that actually correlates to the visibility. So right here, you can see my head or no?
Yep, I can see almost your whole body.
And then what about now?
Now you're gone.
So even with the field of view, it's not going to help that much in this particular line of sight thing. It's more for the direction if you're looking on the right side or the left. So what you're really looking at for is keep in mind that you are visible. Right now, you are completely visible to the enemy player that is literally standing in the open, kind of has that right shoulder peak advantage. So what you just got to be aware of that. Now what we'll do is check out the opposite end. So go ahead and let's swap sides. So now I'm on the right side and they're on they're peeking from the left side as well. So let me know when I disappear.
No, your head's gone at least. Are you on your whole body?
No, just the head.
All right, can you do it again? Gone.
So you can see you get a little bit more of it makes a little bit more sense when you're on a right side. So your shoulder will definitely be more available when you are having a left peak versus a right. So a lot of times you just want to take the right side just because you have a little bit more visibility, and that kind of forces you to have a little bit more control of how much of your body's shown. Because obviously in this particular scenario, when I'm hiding behind this cover, the enemy is still very able to see me without any issues. So that's the Gulag in a nutshell. That's more of a beginner's guide to the Gulag. And basically what I covered in this video should definitely help get you started. Some little nuggets in there that maybe you never heard of. So one thing I will touch on is that you should see immediate improvement, but obviously it takes experience to improve because it really just depends on who's on the other side that may be doing the exact same tactic you are. Hopefully they're not, so you can go ahead and get those wins and get back into the match and send that guy to the lobby. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, found it helpful in some way. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.